Let's get, you can go.
And the Washington County Quorum Court is now called into session. Good to have everyone here this evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I've asked J.P. Washington to lead us in our prayer and pledge.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to assemble as the Washington County Quorum Court tonight. And Lord, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance as we conduct the county's business. Your word says that if we lack wisdom, that all we have to do is ask of you and that you will give it to us. So God, tonight I thank you for wisdom for us to conduct our business speedily. I thank you for wisdom for us to conduct our business thoroughly. And I thank you for wisdom for us to do what is in the best interest of Washington County. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, J.P. Washington. All right, so we'll go ahead and have adoption of the agenda. J.P. Lemon, go ahead.
I'd like to add item 21-0-121.
All right, tell us what that is. Did I turn it off? What happened? Go ahead.
It's an ordinance for Ms. Warren's, the appropriation of the money for Ms. Warren and for her court.
All right, so that would be, again, item number 21-121. All right. All right, with that, any other items for the adoption of the agenda? J.P. Deacons and then J.P. Hires.
Yeah, first, can we speak for or against the additions right now, or would that be appropriate?
No, I think we just put them on and then the discussion will happen at the item. Once they get voted, you guys will be voting to see if the agenda will be adopted as amended or not.
But do we take them up separately, or are we going to take them up as all at once?
Separate, okay. So for the adoption of the agenda item 21-0121 to be added to the agenda, which will be the Judge Warren's request for, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, let's have a discussion.
My concern with that ordinance is we saw, I believe it was last week, we have another ordinance on the agenda tonight about if those renovations are taken in a COVID manner, we might be able to take those, expend those out of ARPA money. And the ordinance is not written up like that. I don't know if the plans would support that, but I would like to have further discussion about that in a committee setting about whether or not those would be eligible for that. I think that'd be a good use for those funds. And then, subject to whatever, I do have another motion to add to the agenda.
Any other discussion? J.P. Hires?
I just had something to deal with the agenda.
Okay.
Not on this.
Any other discussion about the addition to the agenda 21-0121? All right, let's go ahead and, J.P. Hire, J.P. Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. From the email that went out from Judge Warren, along with advocating for this ordinance, it's my understanding that time is of the essence with this. So I feel that we really shouldn't delay this any further, and we should discuss it tonight. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, this is for the addition of adding 21-0121 to the agenda. Go ahead, J.P. Eki.
Does this have to be added to the agenda now, or can't it just be discussed when we're discussing the budget?
We could be discussed at that
updates, I
point,
mean-
depending on where we go with the budget. The budget's only on the second reading, so if there's not a move, then there's no discussion, it
I
just
mean,
goes to the
can't they
final
just
vote.
make a motion? I guess I'm asking for a parliamentary procedure on this, just to make a motion to amend the budget as proceeded, or do we need to do an ordinance request for
Well,
having this?
the ordinance that I think JP Lemming has that was sent out was a request for the money for this fiscal year, because if there's gonna be anything done, if there are gonna be people that need office space starting January 1st, then we would need to go ahead and start that project before the beginning of the year, and that 2022 budget wouldn't allow that money until the first of the year.
And where is that in our packet? Do we have it anywhere?
It's on your computer.
It's
yes.
on our computer. That's what it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Judge.
All right. Ms. Patty, we'll go ahead and take a roll on adding item 210121 to the agenda.
Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. No. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. No. Shannon Marty. No. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. No. Patrick Deakins. No. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. No. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
I have 7 for, 7 against, and 1 abstain.
Okay, so that does not go on the agenda. The adoption of the agenda, any other items to be added or amended? JP Hires and then JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to move that all items be pulled off of the consent agenda.
All right,
That doesn't require a vote. That's just a request, so there will be no items on the consent agenda.
all right. JP Deakins and then JP Dennis.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I need to make a motion to add item number 11 to the agenda. We put it on there as a placeholder so everybody could see it. This is the enhanced pay for the detention officers that we've been working on with Sheriff Helder and his staff. We discussed this at Jails of Law last week, and this is the ordinance that we've drafted to do that. So I'd make a motion that we add this to the agenda tonight.
Second.
Discussion. We got a motion and a second to add item 11 on the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? All right, so item 11 will be added to the agenda. Any other items? JP Dennis? You good? Okay. All right, now we need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. We have a motion, a second, and a second. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, so the agenda has been adopted as amended. We'll go ahead and move to the preliminary motions. That's again where we'll read items by title only, resolutions and ordinances. JP Duncan,
I move that all ordinances be read by title only.
we got a motion. We have a second? A motion and a second. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, so preliminary motion passes. Citizen comments. This is the time of the meeting where we ask citizens of the county come and visit with us, share what they see going on in the county, whether it be to support or some things that we want to highlight. We ask that we got 15 minutes. We ask that you state your name, where you're from. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. And with that, state your name. Tell us who you are. Where you from?
Can you hear? Okay, sorry. I didn't turn red yet. Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Good evening, Court. I wanted to renew my request. I know there had been discussion over the last couple of months about the potential for having a full discussion of American Rescue Plan monies. Tonight, there are agenda items that, if passed, will spend against these monies. We received $23 million this year, and we'll get $23 million next year. And while that seems at first blush like that's a lot of money, it spends very quickly. And much like, again, whenever we're budgeting for our families, we look at all of the potential expenses, all of the potential things we would invest in for our families, I really am asking that we pause and don't do any additional spending to the American Rescue monies until we have a full conversation. The Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition has a website, www.yourcovidrelief.com, and we've had folks weighing in on different things that they actually were wanting in the community. We've heard different things around mortgage relief. We've heard about small business assistance. We've heard about increasing healthcare capacity. So the community definitely has a lot of areas that this money could be spent on that they want explored. So I'm just asking that we pause and we have that full conversations before we move forward. Thank you.
Citizen comments? Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Sherry Main, Riches Road, Fayetteville, Arkansas. And thank you for listening to me tonight. I wanted to bring up a couple of things in my 3 minutes, so I'll try to talk quick. I'm an advocate for the residents of West Fayetteville regarding the Weddington Mine LLC. And I've been on the phone constantly with my phone blowing up yesterday and today. Weddington Mine is hauling red dirt from their pit. They hauled all day yesterday and they hauled today. DEQ was notified, complaints were done, and I spoke with 2 individuals at DEQ today over the mining and the water, and they were told that Tom is in compliance by Tom. I don't know how that's possible, but earlier this year there was a appeal. Well, Tom filed an appeal for Weddington Mine on the denial of his CUP before this body. And that was not overturned by the circuit court judge. It was held. And so they do not have an active CUP to be operating. And I ask you to protect our neighborhood from this company just operating in disregard to the rules and regulations of the county. Because we've been down this road before, and they're going to tread the water and see what they can get by with. And apparently, for 2 days, it's happened. They're running trucks. And I just ask that someone look into it to see if something can be done and this can be stopped without a cup. It's my understanding it can't be operating. And on another, my second topic I wanted to comment on is the Sheriff Hilder's plan. I listened at the committee meeting when he and Officer Cantrell presented their presentation on their premium pay and the money coming from the American Rescue Plan. And I think this is a great idea. And from my last count, and it's probably more now, there are 45 people down, employees at the detention center. This is an emergency situation. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the detention center and how dangerous it is not to have a complete staff there maintaining and protecting the employees along with the detainees. This is just a crisis situation and it needs to be handled as such. And I think we need to give them what they're asking, get better pay for the employees, and also do an incentive. He had mentioned a referral bonus to get qualified people in and a sign-on bonus. Everyone is doing that.
Thank you, Ms. Main.
So I just ask that you could please consider that, and if not, take his recommendations, meet them halfway. Thank you.
Citizen comments.
Good evening, Josh Moody, Fayetteville. First of all, I'd like to say I'm very excited for the discussion about the criminal justice coordinator position tonight, as it was passed by multiple committees last week as a due pass. I hope it passes unanimously tonight, and it's a long time coming. So I'm excited about that. Thank you. I'm also delighted that the consent agenda failed. I was at the finance meeting where these were added to the consent agenda. And at the very end of the meeting, I saw a couple of JPs whispering for a couple of minutes while the rest of the room was wondering what was happening. Whispering is one word, for lack of a better word, collusion is another. I don't know. It was an interesting attempt at strategy, which is something that certain members of this body continuously say they're against and want everything to be out in the open and transparent and public. Speaking of the American Rescue Funds that was mentioned earlier, if everything passes tonight, we will have spent around $1.5 million by the end of the night. Before putting forth NGO application processes and before figuring out how much will be allocated where. Now, I know that some discussions have started on that, and that's a good first step. Perhaps maybe a good starting point is $23 million is spent on county services, $23 million is spent on NGOs. I don't know. That's a starting negotiating point, though. But again, we're starting to spend significant amounts of money before we're really setting out a plan. Item 11, the sheriff's request. First of all, I want to say that I'm 100% behind giving the detention officers both in the adult and the juvenile facilities raises. In fact, I'd go so far as to say the adult could get $20 an hour and the JDC could get $18 an hour. I think that's fair and perhaps needed. However, the sponsor wants all ordinances to come from the committee. I was at that committee meeting as well, and it was a discussion, it was not an ordinance. So the fact that it did not come through the committee, and it was just a discussion, now it's added to this agenda, I feel like certain things are added when certain people want it to be added, whether it's part of the process or not. I just want to leave you with a quote. Stephen Covey said, "Progress moves at the speed of trust." I hope that we can all trust you tonight to make the right choices. Thank you.
Citizen comments.
Yeah, I'm Richard Tiffany in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and there's a couple things I'd like to talk about on the agenda, but something I think is more important is the ongoing practice of discrimination. I think all of you, as I am, hopefully would be offended by ongoing practice of discrimination, whether it's for religion, race, sexual orientation, or as in my case, disability. And I would hope that the JPs would let the deputies who are ordered by Judge Wood to do this discrimination with force and threat of force, that if they report to Sheriff Helder about being asked to do illegal actions, that there's civil rights violations, or if they or if they're discriminated against because of those reports, or if they refuse to carry out the actions that the Judge Wood orders. I hope that you would support the deputies in following federal law. Thank you.
Citizen comments. Citizen comments.
So, Robert Dennis, Prairie Grove, Arkansas. I feel obligated to come and speak for some constituents of mine who called me, and I said, no, tonight probably wouldn't be that good of a time to try to be heard because I thought we'd be too busy. But since we've got a little bit of time, I'd like to speak for them. James and Regina Bryan live out by Orr Bridge, and they called me with the explanation that we were closing the Orr Bridge again, and I hadn't heard anything about it and couldn't answer their questions completely on it. But they live in a situation where that the only way during high water is that bridge, and it's very valuable to them and some of the other citizens that live on that road. So I'm talking about Orr Bridge, anyway, they're very concerned about it. The thought that it's going to be closed. They've been told by the road department that it would be closed, and they don't want it closed. They want it to remain open, and they want it repaired if it needs repaired. And they're willing to work any way they can, But at the same time, all the people out there on that road are very upset about it, and I just don't have the answer for them about it being closed or not. So I just wanted to speak for them and say that they do not want it closed. Thank you.
Citizen comments. Citizen comments.
I apologize for last week. It was the first time I've been to Quorum Court, and I didn't introduce myself. It was, my name is Maeve Corto, and I live in rural Elkins. And I really appreciate that we get to come here, because there's hardly any way that you get to have a voice in your self-governance, and this is where the rubber meets the road. I went last week because I knew that there were going to be the topic of the disposition of money. I'm behind the curve in a lot of this information, but I was taking care of my mother at the time. Since last week, I did a little homework, and I found that there was, aside from the money, the disposition of money for the prison, or whether we're going to use it to help people who are very liable to end up in trouble with the law. Where I live part of my time in Madison County, raising 7 children, and drugs and jobs and everything is really rough. It's really rough. So to pull these thoughts together, I just want to say that I saw, when I was doing my homework from last week to this, that there was a kind of a little scuffle or something in the court in July about pro-life. And I'm real pro-life. I'm one of 9. I have 7 children. My oldest child, I was a single woman pregnant. And the nuance that we need to bring to taking care of everyone, not just in the jail. And I've had a couple sons. Well, actually, I've got 4 sons, and I used to say the girls went to college and the boys went to jail. They're all out now. But the thing about life is, when I found myself pregnant, I was going to a doctor who, at that time, I didn't know he was involved. Maybe he wasn't then. Dr. Harris was involved in abortions. He was my doctor. It was a stressful time. I went to him, I think it was about 4 months along, and it was so stressful. I'd lost a lot of weight. And this is an odd world, but he said, now you decided you were going to carry that baby. You had better take care of yourself. You better take care of that baby. There are complex things about prisoners, culpability, helping people, shaming people, and all these things. I just want us to, if we're really going to be pro-life, if we're going to be really pro-life, you bring someone into the world and you encourage people to have their children, you've got to help them. And I'm just saying that money needs to spread beyond just the jail. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Corto. We have about 18 seconds left on citizen comments. All right, with that, then we'll go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes. Got a motion to approve the minutes, a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, minutes passed. Item 7 is our county judge report. You should have a disposal report in your package. Want to remind everyone, this Saturday, the drug enforcement is having their Take Back initiative, prescription drugs and all. Encourage citizens around the state, around the country, they're doing it, but in particular, Arkansas, to take those drugs in and turn those in, get them out of your medicine cabinets, and drop them off so they can be disposed of properly. The next week, we'll have our Washington County cleanup, and that should the 27th through the 29th. The Washington County Cleanup, that's posted online 7 to 3 on those days, 7 to 3. Our county clerk, Miss Becky Llewellyn, and our county coroner, they both lost their a parent this past couple of weeks, and they both wanted to extend their appreciation for thoughts and prayers that you guys extended to them. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you, their appreciation, and thanks for thinking of them and their family. Washington County has sent an agreement to the University of Arkansas Medical School, who's going to be now providing the services for our crisis stabilization unit for Northwest Arkansas. So the NWACSU will be reopening with UAMS being the service provider. They're anxious and looking forward to working with us. I think some of you guys saw the Chancellor, Cam Patterson, was pretty excited after their board meeting, knowing that they're going to be partnering with us, and he went out and told everybody. But yet his team, who has to do all the work, was like, we got to do our due diligence and put out a bid and that type of thing. So we've done all that. The bid came back. They were awarded. We just sent the agreement to them. They're going to have their team look at that. They're right now looking at staffing, and which is across the country, trying to find doctors and nurses and psychologists to kind of work and do that work. So anyway, they're working on the staffing piece of it, as well as working with DHS to get their necessary certification. So as soon as we get a live and open date, we'll make sure that everybody knows that. But we're really excited about having UAMS partner with Northwest Arkansas CSU here in Washington County. Lastly, I want two things. One, some of you guys know Scott Davis. He's been around for a while. Scott Davis did a project for the county. It was the oral history of Washington County, and he actually was told 2 weeks ago that he was the recipient of the 2021 Excellence in Heritage Preservation Award. And so he and I will get some time down in Little Rock with the Arkansas Preserve Arkansas. The history is online on our website, oral history of Washington County, and many of you JPs were involved, some citizens were involved, old-time JPs and county judges and sheriffs, and I mean, he did a really thorough job of that, and now it's other counties wanting to do the exact same thing. And so, again, want to appreciate Scott Davis for his work on that project. Lastly, our election commissioners, like the state legislators, they have been working on maps. The election commissioners just recently put out about 2 or 3 maps, should be posted online. The legislators finished up, I guess, it's been 2 weeks now that they finished up doing their maps. But every 10 years, we go through the census, the United States, we do a recalibration of how many citizens and population that we have in, across the country, but let alone in our state, which helps drives what we need to have in preparation in our schools, in our emergency rooms, et cetera, and where shifts and representation that you have. So if you see populations that have dropped off, you have less representation versus where you see more people populated, you end up getting additional, whether it be JPs or state representatives, congressional offices, et cetera. So if you're interested, you can go online and look at a few of the proposed maps that are out there. They may eventually have some additional maps, but right now they have 3 maps out there, proposed maps for redistricting information and the folks in the county's consideration. With that, item 8, we will go ahead and look at unfinished business. Council, will you read that one by title only?
Item 8 is an ordinance establishing the Washington County annual budget for the fiscal and calendar year 2022.
JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I want to continue to thank the full Quorum Court and the committee for all their hard work on this. I know it's been, all the elected officials have helped us put this budget together, and I'm glad to have it here. I'm glad to continue the discussion, but I'd move passage of item number 8.
Unless there's a motion to move it to its third and final, then it just moves on to next month's for reading. Go ahead, JP Deacons.
I would make a motion to suspend the rules and move it to third and final reading.
All right, there's a motion to suspend the rules, move to a third and final reading, a second by, who's that? JP Johnson. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacons. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
No.
Eva Madison. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, it's 7 to 8. It did not.
Okay, so that'll
Did
move
not.
on to next month's
it didn't.
agenda item. JP Ecke.
I don't know where in this agenda, but the only place that I know to make this motion was for, to add an amendment to the 2022 budget.
That would be at the next.
So we're just going to have to wait to
Yeah.
do this to the next meeting?
You can do it, and it just gets pushed to the next meeting, whatever the amendment is.
I have two amendments.
All right, what are those amendments?
The first one is to amend the coroner's budget for 2022. And I move to amend the coroner's budget to incorporate the changes in the revised budget that I have provided for you. The revised budget is marked as document C1 and C2. And this was to include the personnel that was added for the 2021 budget.
Okay,
And we
so
just approved it.
that's the first one.
The first one. The second one is to the assessor's
Well,
budget.
let's take the first one.
Okay.
So there's a motion to amend the 2022 budget for the coroner by, what's the number, or do we have a
It's just C1 and C2.
C1 and C2? All right, is there a second?
Pardon? Oh, they don't have, I didn't realize they didn't have any. We'll go ahead and pass them out. This was, in personnel, the coroner asked that we approve, I guess I can do it that way, a new position to the coroner's office, which we did. But in order to include that employee in the 2022 budget, his 22 budget was already submitted. We have to update his budget to include this new personnel position that we approved in personnel, budget and finance, and in the quorum court.
Do everyone have one now?
And it's just to include this position in his budget.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the 2022 budget with the coroner's addition of personnel. Was there a second? There was a second. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, so we'll have that one amended and added to, and then what was the second?
The second one, Judge, thank you, is to amend the assessor's 2022 budget. So I move to amend the assessor's 2022 budget to incorporate the changes in the revised budget that I provided for you. That revised budget is marked as document A1 and A2. And this is to include the positions that were approved in 2021.
Okay, so we have a motion for the assessor to amend the budget for 2022 with personnel regarding the assessor's office. Well, first of all, did everybody, well, we got, is this the A2?
A1.
That A2? Okay, I got that one. Does everyone have it then? Does everyone have A1 and A2? Second page? All right. So we have a motion, was there a second? Second. All right, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
All right, so the ayes have it. Okay, so we have two amendments that will be added to reflect in the 2022 budget, and that'll be taken up in the next month's budget, next month's quorum court. All right, so council, we're gonna go ahead and start walking through the new business. Read those by title only. We'll start with number 1, which is your item number 9. It was consent agenda item, but we're just going to ahead and read those as number 1.
Okay, item 9.1. It's an ordinance creating one position of deputy coroner in the coroner budget and appropriating the amount of $8,744 from the unappropriated reserves to the coroner budget for 2021.
J.P. Ecke.
Yes, Judge, this is the position requested by our coroner, and I make a motion that we pass this. I mean, I thought this was on the consent agenda.
Everything was removed.
Yep.
Everything was removed, okay.
So we have a
I
motion and a
apologize. I didn't
second
think it-
for the passage of item 9.1. Any discussion? Any discussion? Citizen comments? Any public comments? All right, Ms. Patty?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
All right, item 9.1 passes. 9.2, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance creating the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee Coordinator position in the county judge budget for 2021.
J.P. Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Judge. I move we pass this ordinance.
We got a motion to pass, a second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Let me get you up. Push your button. There you go.
Okay, just
Say again,
wanted
tell
to-
us your name and where
yeah,
you're from.
I'm Richard Tiffany. I live in Fayetteville, and was a little preoccupied on the early comments, but I just wanted to voice my support for this, and it's something that's been needed for a while. Thanks.
Any other public comments? Ms. Patty, take the roll.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
Item 9.2 passes. Council, would you read 9.3 by title only?
9.3 is an ordinance expressing appreciation for county employees working in the county clerk's office during COVID and appropriating $14,798.79 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to various line items in the county clerk budget for 2021.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an ordinance appropriating money to express the appreciation. This is for the county clerk's office that was open during the pandemic last year to the public, and so this kind of matches the what we've done for both the coroner and the detention office. I move passage of item 9.3.
All right, we got a motion to pass 9.3, a second by J.P. Pond. Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll? Please. Oh, come on. I'm sorry. Hit your button there, Mr. There you go.
Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. I'd really like to ask that there be some consideration for funding that very important measure from a fund other than the American Rescue Act money. As we've said many times, you know, that's how very important it is that money be used for the appropriate ways. And this is a very good thing. I'm really glad this measure has been proposed, but I really do think it needs to come from another fund. Thank you.
Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Ussery. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
9.3 passes. 9.4, Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $35,000 from the property reappraisal line item in the Board of Equalization budget to the improvements other than buildings line item in the Assessor's budget for 2021.
J.P. Pine?
This is the one that pays for the replacement of the carpet in the facility. A lot of traffic runs back and forth through there. I move to pass.
Got a motion to pass, a second by J.P. Deakins. Any discussion? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Ussery. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Patty. 9.4 passes. 9.5, Counselor, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $88,546.30 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the TASER line item in the sheriff's budget and jail budget for 2021.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an appropriation for this year. If you remember, the Sheriff's Department had tasers in their budget for last year, and it was one expenditure, and they're working with us a little bit to divide that up over 4 years to take advantage of basically some interest-free money, and they want to fund the first portion before this year end to take advantage of some vendor credits. So I move passage of item 9.5.
There's a motion to pass 9.5, a second by J.P. Johnson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Ussery. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
Item 9.5 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 9.6, Counsel, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $62,199.20 and appropriating the total amount of $155,983.40 from both the general fund and jail fund to various line items in the sheriff and jail budget for 2021.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. As many of us know, the Sheriff's Department provides security at several events, football games included. This is us accepting that revenue as a county and appropriating it back to the Sheriff's Department to cover their costs. I move passage of item 9.6.
There's a motion by J.P. Deakins, second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
All right, item 9.6 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 9.7. Item 9.7, Council, would you read that one by title only?
9.7 is an ordinance de-appropriating surplus amounts from the full-time salaries for various departments and restoring those amounts to unappropriated reserves as required by the 2021 budget controls for the third quarter of 2021.
And J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I move passage of item 9.7.
There's a motion for 9.7, second by J.P. Dennis.
I'll second it, but I have a question.
Okay, any discussion? So we got a motion and a second. Go ahead, discussion.
Yes, please.
J.P. Dennis?
So, does this also include all the road department's unappropriated reserves on salary? Okay. I know that I was working on an ordinance on that for that money to be used for a bonus type pay. And so that money would go away from this, from the road department's account into this?
No, it'd just be in the road, it would be in the road department's unappropriated reserves. It just gets moved back into their unappropriated reserves.
Okay, it'll stay in the road department's reserve.
Correct.
Okay, well, I misunderstood that, but that's fine. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any public comments? Hit your button, Ms. Main. Hit your microphone.
Can you hear me
There you
now? All
There you
right.
go.
Sherry Main, Riches Road, Fayetteville. The only thing I want to comment on this is it goes back to what I was saying in my original comment earlier. The employees are down at the jail, and so the majority of this that was not appropriated, or that was not funded through full-time salaries in the budget, is the jail, about $651,000, jail and sheriff. Again, I reiterate that this is an emergency situation. It needs to be an emergency ordinance. I don't know why an emergency ordinance wasn't written to get better pay for the detention center, for the jail, for the jailers, for the employees there. I can't express the urgency of the situation down there, and something needs to be done sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Public comments. Ms. Patty, would you take the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Patty. 9.7 passes. 9.8, Council, would you read that one by title only? Point of order. Keep your quiet. Ms. Patty, Council, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing and appropriating revenue in the amount of $420,470.09 in the road department budget for 2021.
J.P. Deakins?
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is a reimbursement from FEMA for some storm damage that the road department had to fix, and this is us appropriating that money back to the road department budget to cover those costs. I move passage of item 9.8.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on item 9.8. Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. This ordinance passes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patty. 9.8 passes. So that takes us to item 10. Council, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $265,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to the small equipment line item in the assessor budget for 2021.
And J.P. Duncan.
I met with Assessor Hill, and if you want to come up and speak to this, this was to make the office safer for both employees and for the public that visit the office. So we felt it was appropriate to come through American Rescue Plan funding, and I'll turn the floor over to Assessor Hill.
Just kind of.
Hit that one again, Assessor Hill. There you go.
All right. In the spirit of full disclosure, this was a plan that I was putting together for 2023. That would put us into 20 years of using this furniture and also the carpet. The carpet was part of that. You guys passed that earlier. At the time, since I've been in office since 2015, we've been on a kind of a budget cutting because we were operating in the red and we were using money out of the reserves. And so putting that off until 2020 reappraisal, give a couple years, we're going to see infusions of money coming in. And I thought, okay, maybe by 2023, we might be able to change the layout of the assessor's office to better be more efficient and more effective with the workflow and the way that we were moving things. And then COVID hit, and that made us rethink the entire layout, putting an emphasis on healthcare and disease prevention. The current layout that we have is we have a pod system in there where the pods, the employees face each other and they're side by side to each other. And when someone comes in, when a person comes in and we assist them, they are sitting right on top of them. I mean, right next to them, very close. And so they're close together. The dividers are short, where they can see right over each other when they're talking to each other. And the customers are very close. The new layout, as you see here, they're facing outward where their backs are to each other. They're spread further apart. I don't know if y'all got the layout, yeah. So they're spread further apart. The dividers are higher. There is a table, so when the public does come in to do business with our office to look up properties and deeds and find out where things are at, they're able to sit there. One thing that's not pictured is there will be a glass divider on that table, so when the customers come in, they'll be there. And then there'll also be a monitor facing them so they can see their property as we pull it up on the map and look at any deed searches or anything that we do. So it just makes it a much safer area for them to come in. A couple of points on the urgency of this. As I got this priced out, I found out from our provider, as you know, a lot of prices are going up. I was notified that in November 1st, there's going to be at least a 10% increase to the cost of the furniture that we're looking at. So I really would like to order it in October. That would save us at least $50,000 from a price hike. As I was speaking, J.P. Lemming approached me this week and asked what we were going to do with the old furniture. I said, oh, no, I'm trying to find, I mean, it's good, usable. It doesn't fit the layout for what we need to do to run more efficient, more effective, and also mainly for the health concerns as well. But it's good equipment. It can be reused. And he had introduced me to Judge Warren and their need for furniture.
So we could rehome a lot of this to help them, which reduce the cost of any spending for the county to help furnish their offices. And they've already earmarked a few things. They're going to come through, hopefully, if the passage of this goes, then they can come through and start tagging some more stuff. I know there's a lot of concern that when you're sending this American Rescue Plan money, there's a lot of strings tied to it from the federal government that we don't know about. And then where if you give this money out, the county could be on hook to repay all of that. One side note of that is if we somehow managed, I think it all qualifies from what I've been told, it qualifies for the American Rescue Plan funds, but if we were to come back for that $265,000, the county's portion to the general budget would be a 9%, which is less than $24,000. So if there was some reason that one of these federal strings that are tied to these dollars, and we don't know what all those strings incur, and I know that's why you're hesitant on, putting a lot of that out there because you might have to pay it back. The direct impact would be less than $24,000 to the county. And then the final thing is everyone has their own comfort level with COVID. And there are, for some people, there is a real fear of COVID for them. And there's others that aren't. There's some, they're vaccinated. There's some that aren't vaccinated. They're not going to be mask wearers, non-mask wearers. Everybody has their own comfort level of where they are and where they're not. I do have some employees who have a very real fear of COVID. And I have not seen their face since March of 2020. And one in particular, I was watching her this week. She's worked for the county for over 20 years. She's very thorough. She's very specialized in what she does. She hasn't, every time she doesn't touch a doorknob with her hand, she has double masked up at times and tries to keep her distance. And I was watching her this week, and this is just the importance of getting, this done. But and we had two elderly gentlemen come in. They're trying to get their affairs in order, which is pretty common in our office. Most of the people that come in are usually older in age, and they were there for well over an hour trying to work. And she's trying to work through and help them look through a lot of stuff. Well, one of them, and they're sitting there looking at her monitor, and one's got his head right here. Now, they're all masked, and the other one's standing behind both of them, kind of over them, breathing down on them. And she's sitting there, has her mask on, and she's patiently working with them. And I looked and I saw, because I know how real her fear is. And I knew that for that hour plus time that she was with them, she was cringing inside. But she still did her job. And for me, when I saw that, I thought, you know what? I can't get this equipment here fast enough so I can get these folks who, for them, and that's not all my office, and each person's different, but for those who it really is a real fear, to be able to get that form. So that's why I'm asking that we move on this quickly. That's why I moved it up from 2023 to now, because the timing just seems to be right. The money is there now, and it will really make a big difference in the safety of the public and my employees. And so I'm ready to answer any questions you might have.
Well, first of all, let's get a motion first, and then we can open up a discussion. We got a motion and a second. Discussion now. J.P. Dennis, then J.P. Madison.
I'm on, I'll jump in.
No, J.P. Dennis, let me go first.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. 10% savings is great, but it's still a lot of money. And I know furniture is marked up a tremendous amount. And so, but you have to buy it from furniture manufacturers. So I understand that part as well. But was this project bid on by more than one company?
Is what now? It was a pre-bid, so they put their bids out to the state.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. That explains that.
So it was all state approved.
So, yes, it was. Or no, it wasn't?
No, it was.
Okay.
J.P. Madison, J.P. Deacons, then J.P. Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge. I'm curious, given that most furniture is probably on a boat in California right now, do you know that you're going to be able to get it in a time to make a difference?
The anticipated, the quickest time that they're at about a 12-week period from being out, is what I've been told, that 12 weeks. I think they have a distribution center. I'm not sure exactly what state it's in, but they said they have the equipment, they just have to do certain modifications to it, but it is there.
Well, we ordered some furniture from last February that we're still waiting on, so that's why I thought I would ask.
And I may get that run around later on,
Okay.
but.
Well, and let me say, I fully support this. I think it's good for your office. I think this is part of a bigger conversation that this body needs to have on the American Rescue Plan funds, because it just seems like we're taking the easy way out. Anytime there might remotely be a COVID connection, we're saying, let's pull it out of the 23 million because we don't have to worry about that. But what gives me pause about this one is that if we actually spin it out of county general, it would only actually cost us $23,500. And so that's why I'm like, is that really the best way to do this? Is the best way to just go to this easy money and spend a chunk of it? Or should we be saying, no, let's go ahead and spend it now out of general fund because it won't be a big hit. Your office needs it. Your people need it. But then save the larger conversation for what we're going to do with the American Rescue Plan Fund. So I'm really kind of conflicted on this because I think we've heard over and over again from the public, they don't want us to just nickel and dime this money until it's all gone without a robust discussion, and that's what we're doing. So I don't know.
Well, I would like to. I don't care where the money comes from.
I know you don't. I know you don't, and that's why I'm saying. Like,
I don't want it to go on to another month, so it's going to
it.
cost us even more. So
I get it, and I think you've anticipated that it could be an expense that we have to bear anyway, but because we know what those numbers are.
If we order it before the end of October, we're good. We're locked in on that price. If we order it after.
No, I just meant that you know that if it's ultimately not, a valid ARP expense, that we will pay it, but it impacts us in such a less significant way. So
Correct.
it just to me epitomizes that we need to have a broader discussion.
I definitely see your point on that.
Thank you.
JP Deacons? You good? JP Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Judge Wood. I just wanted to clarify, because I think I'm a little confused on the numbers. So if the county ended up, if this ended up being not an approved, expense under the ARP, the county's part would be like $24,000. Who would the assessors?
The assessor's office is a commission-based office, and so we're funded in direct proportion to who we fund. So the schools would pick up 80-something%. The counties, the cities would pick up 7%, and the county would pick up 9%.
Okay, got it.
And so that's where that's where the county general would pay roughly $23,000 of that if we didn't fund it through the American Rescue Plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Hill. Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty? Oh. Come on, public comments.
Josh Moody, Fayetteville. I was good until that last little bit. If I'm understanding correctly, for some reason this is not ARP permissible. It sounds to me like the schools who I work for will be on the hook for over $200,000. So, in other words, we're making a decision for entities that are outside of just this body's purview. So, just a thought there. Thank you.
Public comments.
I had a call this morning from a woman who.
Again, Ms. Tiffany,
sorry,
tell us who you are and where
Tiffany
you're from.
Fayetteville. I had a call this morning from a woman who I've known for a long time, but 2 years ago, she had a nervous breakdown and has been pretty well out of, she's not in sync with reality there for quite a while. And so she called this morning to ask me for help because she was down to her last $500 and could not pay rent for next month. So she was very much concerned about how to get help. So I told her about the city plan to help. I told her that there's help with the county. And it just reinforced to me just how many people are still out there in desperate situations. And people who, you know, for whatever reason, they're just struggling. And the real need for help for people all across our county is just so vividly real to me that I want this body to really remember as we're making decisions about this, that there needs to be a good, robust plan, and that I've never heard anybody actually say who it is who would be responsible for constructing this plan. And I really do feel like that this body could at least decide who's going to make those decisions, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in the group as a whole in making this plan real. But there needs to be a plan. There needs to be a plan to help people through COVID. And we're not done with it yet.
Public comments?
No offense, but
Give us your name and where you're from.
my bad. My name is William Terrell. I live in Fayetteville, JP District 12. And no offense, but new furniture is always nice. Who doesn't love new furniture? But the problem comes with the fact that the furniture is still good, number one, according to our the Assessor, its own admission. And the sort of the third portion of that is 95.8% of Arkansas has already received at least one dose of the COVID vaccine. You can look it up. It's statistic. It's fact. And our surrounding states have at least 90% have been vaccinated already. And so it seems to me that it's too little, too late, and we're just wasting government dollars because we can. And I'm not a big fan of really any waste, period, but it seems to me that we're restricting our economic freedom of the citizens of Washington County by imposing more regulation and strings upon us that we don't even entirely know yet. So we can spend funds on what? Pay raises, potentially? And furniture, and this is just something that's constantly been repetitive, passing ordinances and approving money to go places, and it seems to me to be frivolous. And, you know, I would encourage y'all guys to not vote for the furniture and to think about how you're spending your money. The majority of the Quorum Court is Republicans, and one of the Republican principles is at that, you know, is being financially responsible and, you know, physically conservative with funds. And it seems to me that you're violating the very principles that you ran on and that you promised the citizens of Washington County who elected y'all. I find it kind of be really two-faced. And so I would encourage y'all guys to look at that in the budget. And if we do have money in the general fund, take it out of there instead of taking it out of American Rescue Party funds, because, you know, you're imposing that on us. Gas is already too high, taxes are too high, people can't even afford to go to their own grocery store. I'm fortunate enough to be able to, you know, buy a whole lamb if I wanted to, and I do, but other people can't. I know people who can't go to the grocery store, they're at the food bank, and yet they work full-time jobs, respectable citizens, but due to the way COVID has impacted them, you know, that's the reality that we live in. Inflation's going crazy through the roof, and I believe it's irresponsible of our politicians, while people are suffering, to frivolously spend money that they don't have. When
Thank
we could be opening up our economy and allowing businesses, for instance, restaurants, they have a limited amount of customers they're allowed to have in at one present point in time.
Okay, Mr. Terrell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, Ms. Patty, this is on item 10, passes of item 10.
Suki Hires. You say yes? Yes. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deakins. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Do you say yes?
Yes.
No?
No, yes.
Yes. Robert Dennis.
No.
This ordinance passes.
Okay, item 10 passes. Item 11, that was added on. Council, would you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $406,647.03 from the American Rescue Plan Act Fund to various line items in various budgets for 2021.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Once again, this is the ordinance for the enhanced pay for our premium pay for our detention officers at both the detention center and the JDC. And what this will effectively do is give all of our detention officers a premium pay bonus of $3 per hour. It also implements a system of a sign-on bonus of $1,500 per individual who can meet certain hiring requirements and retention requirements. And then it also implements a referral fee of $500 if current employees can refer new employees. I want to say that this is a very expensive program. This is the amount for the rest of this year, and we would need to continue this out of ARPA money in subsequent years. But, you know, the Sheriff Helder's here tonight. He highlighted this for us in our Jails and Law Enforcement Committee. I think this is critically important. I think we have a situation at the jail right now that really needs some help. And if this helps him with his employment numbers and get some qualified individuals in there to help out, I think it's what the intended purpose of these funds is for. And so that's why I'm wholeheartedly behind this, and I'd move passage of item number 11.
Motion to pass 11.1, second by J.P. Johnson. Discussion. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. So after the jail and law enforcement meeting where we talked about this, where it wasn't in ordinance form, I actually reached out to the sheriff and said, can you put together some numbers? I'd like to try to maybe amend the budget to add this in. And so I say all that to say that I clearly support providing our detention officers a raise. What's giving me pause about this proposal tonight is that if it costs $406,000 for the rest of this year, that means it costs $1.6 million a year to do it. And we're not talking about that. I can't imagine spending American Rescue Plans for the next 3 years and then telling the jail folks, well, you just lost that $3 premium. And if we can't sustain this, I think we need to have a much more significant conversation about how to do it. My goal was to figure out a way to pay for it from existing funds, because the reality is this short-term federal money can't be used to sustain long-term employees. It's abundantly clear that the people at the jail need a big raise. Probably every county employee needs a big raise. The issue that we're having at the jail is not limited to the jail. It's just more dire because of the circumstances. But this is present at our road department. We're losing people. The market has gotten incredibly competitive. And people just don't want to work these hard jobs for $13 an hour. Who can blame them? You can go to Target and work for $15. You can go to Amazon and work for $18. So we have to do better, but we cannot keep relying on American Rescue Plan funds that are going to run out to sustain us. And if I were someone working at the jail, I'd be really glad that the Quorum Court is saying you deserve a raise, we're going to give you one. And so that's why I will vote yes on this tonight. But we have to talk about how to sustain this, because we can't leave them limping along, not sure how long this raise is going to last. If we can't sustain $1.6 million a year, then we shouldn't be leading them down this path. We should be coming up with another plan. But they deserve it. And I feel badly ever since we did the STEP program for the detention officers that we weren't able to do the same for the enforcement officers, that we weren't able to do the same for the detention folks. So now's the time to do it, but this court has got to have a discussion about how to fund it in a sustainable way, and not just for the people at the jail, for every single county employee to make a decent wage. Thanks, Judge.
All right, JP Madison, JP Hires.
Thank you, Judge. I want to echo the sentiments of JP Madison as well, and I want to say that I support this, but I'm also hesitant for some of the same reasons she said. I'm also really kind of struggling with a lot of this money that we're passing tonight, because we still have an entire courtroom that we have not adequately passed a budget for. We are balking at spending money to staff a courtroom that we fought for, and so I'm really struggling when we're passing money without taking care of some other real situations that need to be dealt with. So I'm really struggling with this. I want to support it. I'm kind of concerned, though, that we haven't tackled the situation with the JDC, and we're spending a lot of money when we still seem to be very hesitant to spend the money that needs to be spent to set that situation up. So thank you.
JP Simons, and then you good? JP Dennis, and then JP Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I voted against the furniture because furniture money will go somewhere else outside the state. We stand and we say, well, we want to help the people who are poor of our county. We want to help our community. When you give someone a raise that makes only less than $15 an hour, they're spending 100% of that money. And where are they spending 100% of that money at? 90% of it will be spent in Washington County. So that means somebody else gets that money inside of Washington County when the deputies spend that money. And so economically, it's a good thing, because when you give it to someone who's spending it, it gets spent in someone else's pocket. And so it just gives and gives and gives. Whereas if we buy furniture and we buy it from China, it doesn't help a whole lot. And so I'll support this, and I do agree that we've got to be responsible and look at where the money's going to come from in the future. And we also have to realize that we're losing money to the cities. And I think the one thing we do have to do is say, okay, who needs to fund this? Do the cities need to pay for more, and the county, look there for funds as well? So there is a lot of talk that we need to do, and it's a shame that the way we're set up, we can't talk, can't even whisper inside the courtroom. So, you can imagine if we tried to talk to each other outside the courtroom, but we lock our own hands up with all that. That's just another sidebar, but I'll vote for it, and I'll vote for anybody that's working for the county that gets a raise. Thank you.
JP Ecke, and then JP Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, in my opinion, this is an emergency situation that was just discussed during the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee. And the way I see it is that using these funds through the American Rescue Plan is like a triage. We need to stop the bleeding. We need to stop the emergency, the critical situation that's down in these departments. We'll use this money as a triage, which I feel is great because it gives us the opportunity to come up with solutions. It gives us time to keep them alive, keeps them time to keep them breathing and functioning and going on and hiring other people. I see this as a great opportunity. It is a positive for the county. We won't have to raise taxes, which we do not want to do. We're using tax money that's coming back to our county. And that's one thing that I want everybody to understand. You want us to use money out of county general, out of reserves, that's tax money that's going to be spent and it's real fast. And we need to protect those reserves. And if we're getting other funds, and we've already paid taxes, so this is money coming back to us. This is a great opportunity for us to come up with a plan. And with the 15 people on here, I'm confident that we will come up with a great plan for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. J.P. Rio Stafford.
Thank you, Judge Wood. You know, I've kind of struggled with this ordinance. I've gone back and forth because I believe that all of our county employees need to make a living wage, including the employees in the sheriff's department, especially the employees in the detention center and the juvenile detention center. All of them deserve to make a living wage. I just think that to make a permanent pay increase shouldn't come from a temporary fund. So I would like to make a motion to amend this ordinance to appropriate the money out of the general fund instead of the American Rescue Plan Act fund.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the ordinance here, item 11.1, to come out of the reserve as opposed to the American Rescue Plan. So we have a motion to amend. I need a second. We got a second. A discussion? All right, Ms. Patty, will you take the roll? And this is to amend the ordinance. Pardon me? Yes, majority.
Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. No. Jim Wilson. No. Butch Pond.
No.
Lance Johnson.
No.
Shannon Marty. No. Sean Simons. No. Bill Ussard.
No.
Patrick Deakins.
No.
Lisa Ecke. No. Sam Duncan.
No.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
No.
This ordinance fails.
All right. So we're still on the motion and had a second. Any other discussion? Public comments?
Sherry Main, still at Riches Road, Fayetteville. I hate to beat a good horse to death, but this is what we're doing. On ordinance 9.7, we passed that with 15 votes unanimously from all of you. That was $651,000 of the sheriff and jail budget salaries that was unappropriated that went back to their reserves to appropriate. Why don't we appropriate those reserves that have not been spent on salaries back to the jail budget for this 406, 647.03? The money is there, they didn't spend it because they didn't have the employees to spend it on. They're down 45, 50 now. Why can't that money be reappropriated to this ordinance instead of from general? Unless I'm not seeing this correctly. Next year, it has to be sustained, it has to be funded on the 2022 budget. Fund it. The money, if the money's not there, then get it from the American Rescue Funds. This is a crisis situation and it has to be handled. It cannot be put off for another day. We have to have law enforcement and jail employees to protect the detainees and the employees currently working there, doing double shifts, working overtime. That's all unnecessary if you give them the employees they need. Who wants to go risk their life to be spit on, have feces threw at them for $14.75 an hour? Not me. That's not my cup of tea. It's most people wouldn't do it. I know most of you would not do it. Willie said he wouldn't do it for $100 an hour. Give them what they need. Give them the tools they need to do their job. Thank you.
Public comments.
Josh Moody, Fayetteville. It sounds like most of us agree that this is an emergency situation and these raises should happen yesterday, and I appreciate that and I agree with that. And as I said earlier, I'm uncomfortable with the fact that it passed not really from committee but straight to the quorum court, the full quorum court, and I just hope that we can retroactively reset that precedent that any JP can bring something to the full quorum court without it passing through committee first. I do, as you all know, I've been screaming from the mountaintops for months that JDC is bleeding and needs some help. So I think this is a step in that direction. And of course, the sheriff has also said the same thing from his end, and I appreciate that he included JDC in that. But again, we're setting a precedent here, or making an exception, or I don't know. But it seems like, as other things in the past, we're playing favorites. So I expect this to pass tonight, and I think it probably should. Where it comes, she has an interesting idea about where it should come from, and I'm certainly open to that thought. And I'm also hopeful that in the coming years, assuming this passes, that 1.6 difference over year after year after year, hopefully that's not perpetual. My hope is that the criminal justice coordinator will be able to work with all the other smart people in that committee and be able to figure out some other things to reform to where we're not having to hire at the same rate that we are now for those detention positions, if that makes sense. So, thank you.
Public comments.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville. I too was appreciative of the creativity that the crowd and some of the discussion has brought forward about where we potentially could fund this that's been brought forward by the Sheriff's Office. I listened to the proposal that was brought forward in the Jail and Law Enforcement Committee and then the dialogue that happened today. And I'm not honestly sure where we arrived at the $3 per hour. The previous speaker talked about that JP Willie Lemming mentioned, he wouldn't do this job for $100 an hour. There's no guarantee with the amount of money we're appropriating here that this is going to do the job and this is going to fill the positions. We don't know what's going to work. And so I didn't hear any discussion about what our plan B and C is, or if there are additional things on top of handing money to individuals. There's a lot of discussion as we've gone out in the community having conversations about what are the motivators for where you work. Not everybody is motivated by money. Sometimes it's the culture, or it's a type of work environment, or it's the good you're doing in your community that motivates people. And so we didn't really take into account any of the additional conditions that people might want to consider whenever they're looking for employment. And so I kind of put the question out there to all of you to think about, is $3 an hour in these bonus structures, is it going to do it? I mean, are we testing something and we don't know if it's actually going to work? And so I agree with going forward, it's concerning to think about this is something we have to sustain, because if we do this $3 an hour going forward, it's finding this money going forward. But I do echo the sentiments that I hope that there will be some additional changes in our criminal system, and we won't be looking to expand the jail and to have to hire more staff, because we will be talking about tax increases. There will be another sales tax that will have to go forward for the maintenance and the operation. And I also want to bring up the fact that it's been brought up many times about the deplorable type conditions about feces or being spit on. I'm concerned as a community member. Those are our loved ones. They've potentially, many of them are pre-trial, they're accused of a crime that are down there. If those are the types of conditions that are going on an ongoing basis, I think we should all be concerned. I don't think that we should have any of our community members in an environment where there's feces or urine present. I know there can be unique instances where things can occur like that, but if that is that prevalent as it's come up recently, I think that's something else we should talk about in our community, of whether or not we want people held in those types of conditions, because obviously nobody wants to work in that condition, but when you're being detained, especially accused once again and not convicted, we should be holding people in a humane condition. Thank you.
Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty, will you take the roll? Item 11.1.
Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deakins. Yep. Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. 11.1 passes. County Services, J.P. Duncan, committee reports.
The County Services Committee met on October the 4th, and we did have a discussion around American Rescue Plan funding. I know there's been questions about that. I did want to thank the JPs who are not on the committee that came and had input around that discussion. I thought it was very fruitful. We all realize there's a significant need to spend these funds, and I think the ordinance that just passed is a perfect example of how funds can be spent in an appropriate way that are governmental and necessary before we move on to other opportunities. Anyways, the rest of the reports in the packet, I just wanted to say again, thank you to the fellow JPs.
J.P. Duncan, thank you. J.P. Deakins, Finance and Budget.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. We met last week. A good time was had by all, and the report is in the packet.
J.P. Johnson, Jails and Law Enforcement.
Judge, we met last week and the report's in the packet.
And J.P. Ecke, Personnel.
Yes, Judge, we had a meeting last week, and the report is in the packet. Thank you.
All right, with that, Quorum Court is now adjourned.